I've decided that I want to be a hat person. Not me forcing my personalities onto you. Okay, I know there are things in this video that we need to discuss, and I am a hand talker. So please don't judge the fact that I do not have nails right now. Please just let them live today, okay? We have things we need to discuss. This is an emergency video, so I didn't have time to go get the nails did, all right? Happy 2025, by the way. I think according to my calculations, this should be the first video for the new year. Get up on your good foot in 2025, okay? We're gonna start off this year by throwing some things in the garbage can. That's what this video is today. From the years 2016 to 2019, I was in some serious need of some professional help. But instead of getting professional help and getting a therapist, I decided that I was gonna open my laptop and write a blog instead. Hi everyone, if you don't know me, my name is Serena, and this right here is Serena's World, where apparently we talk about real shit. Because in today's video, we're talking about trauma, we're talking about breakups, we're talking about friendship breakups, we're talking about abandonment issues, all of that, okay? What actually got me reflecting on this blog was an email that I got from wordpress.com. And if you guys don't know what WordPress is, it's essentially, I would say the equivalent to it right now is probably a site like Squarespace. It was a way that you and I, who don't know how to make websites, could make our own website. Except WordPress was probably the most popular site used by people who wanted to create their own blog. Anyway, I got an email from WordPress that was saying when they came to charge me for 2025, my card declined. And so they emailed me, they're like, update your payment method. And I was like, payment method for what? You know when you just put something on auto renewal and it just keeps auto renewing and you just never look at it again a day in your life? It's like my gym membership at Planet Fitness. I fully have another gym that I go to every single day, and I still pay whatever it is that you pay at Planet Fitness because I haven't gotten a chance to go back and cancel it. So this was just auto renewing every single year, and it got me thinking, what was I posting on my blog? So I went back to justserenaconfessions.com and I was taking a scroll. Let me set the scene for you. I was 18, I was brand new to college, and my first semester of college, I got partnered with this girl in my Spanish class, because you know, you gotta have your little partner that you chat with in Spanish class. This girl that I was partnered up with was the coolest girl to walk the earth. Now I'm a little embarrassed to say this, but I did go look her up on Instagram, because what else are you to do when you think she's the coolest girl ever and you want to know more about her? You go look her up on the gram. Don't act like you guys don't do that stuff. Anyway, wait, did I not at the beginning of this video establish that this was a judgment-free zone? Anyway, I looked this girl up on Instagram and I saw that she actually, I'm struggling, I'm gonna say her name. I don't need to say her name. I saw linked in her bio on her Instagram was a blog, and I went and read her blog. Take a shot every single time I say blog. I actually saw that she had won like some kind of award in our city for having like one of the most popular blogs in the area. And her blog was all about just like her life, like the cool things she was doing. I remember at the time she had gotten a new puppy, so like she was talking about like, you know, having a new puppy at the time. Just like essentially like what a vlogger on YouTube does, like all those cool girls, like she was doing it but blogging about it. And I was like, I mean, I've always loved writing. Okay, I've always been a writer my whole entire life. That's like one of my favorite things to do is write. So I'm thinking, blogging, writing, how hard could it be? And then I was like, how hard could it be? Boys do it. That was how I decided that I needed to make my own blog. And that is how Oh Just Serena Confessions was born. And I keep holding my laptop as if I'm gonna reference something on it. I haven't even logged into it. This is like the longest I've gone in the winter without a spray tan, and I'm starting to look like the wall back here, this blanket, very translucent. It's giving very much Casper. I don't know how much I like this. And I do just want to say before we get started, there are some posts that deal with topics like thoughts of unaliving yourself, abuse, just a lot of like turmoil, trauma that was going on in my life at the time. So just if you think that any of those things could potentially be triggering to you, maybe just sit this video out. Also just want to say this website does not exist anymore, thank God. So in this blog, at the topics of the blog, I started writing about my life, about anything and everything that was going on in my life at the time. I took a very diaristic approach to the blog, so I was literally just writing about anything and everything that was going on in my life. And there was a lot of turmoil going on in my life at this time. So essentially my blog just became a place for me to trauma dump on everyone about all the things that were going on in my life at the time. My like a start to adult life and starting college didn't necessarily start off in a very positive way. I definitely had a lot of mental health problems that were exacerbated, I guess, once I got out of high school, because when you're in high school, you have a routine that looks the same every single day. You're seeing the same people for 4 years. It's like very easy to manage those, you know, mental health symptoms as they come up. And being introduced to a new environment like college and not really like fitting in and making friends immediately and finding that like community, I really struggled. So during this time when I was starting the blog, I was definitely going through a lot of inner turmoil at the time. And so all this turmoil and starting a blog was not the best combination. And you know, I really was writing about like the deepest, darkest corners of my mind and what I was going through at the time. So yeah, reading through these posts has kind of given me a sense of like secondhand embarrassment, definitely very cringy. Or would it just be firsthand embarrassment or just embarrassment? Because the person writing this stuff is me. So it's not like you're embarrassed for someone else. Like I am embarrassed for me. But I guess my old self would be someone else, right? We're not the same person. So this is my first post. The first official post on this blog is entitled "Why I Quit Using the You Word." And in this blog post, I'm essentially going off about how I have decided to never use the word ugly anymore to describe another person. Truly groundbreaking stuff. And, you know, to be honest, what bothered me the most about this post wasn't really what I was saying. It was more the tone of the post, because I'm essentially saying, I feel like it kind of has this vibe of like, I'm such a good person because I'm never gonna call anyone ugly. Like I wasn't using worse words to describe people when I was frustrated with them. I guess at this time, this was like a word that you would use to like make yourself feel better, especially in situations that involved other women. Like if your boyfriend was flirting with another girl, your friends would be like, oh, well, she's ugly. Like, I guess I realized like I shouldn't use it because I was using it to tear other women down. So I still to this day like don't really believe that you should be calling anyone ugly. You know, I have no problem calling a man ugly if it's warranted. If it's warranted, I will call a man ugly. I don't know, I feel like it was just a sign of immaturity back then. Like you'd be like, oh, she's like so ugly. Like, she's just like so ugly. I don't know, it just reminds me of like in Mean Girls when she calls her a fugly slut. Like, just kind of a silly word to use to describe someone when there's like so many better words you can use that are way worse. I guess for women specifically, like this time in my life, like fresh out of high school, I probably was using words like ugly to describe, you know, the girls that my boyfriend was probably cheating on me with. So I probably like looked inwards and realized like, hey, maybe that's not very cool. I guess what was the most shocking to me to read in this post was all of the Christian rhetoric that I was writing about and all the undertones of like morals and Christianity. And I think I talked about this before on my channel, but I do not identify as a Christian anymore. I think I more closely identify with like agnostic. And so I could not be like, the way that I'm writing in this post could not be further from like the way that I move through the world now. It's like, it was kind of a jump scare. This was the line, a direct quote from the blog, if you will. And I said, she may not have heard me call her ugly, but God did. And now this petty argument is between my heart and the Lord's. Pause to cringe for that for a moment. I need a good pause. Actually, if I scroll down here in the post, there's actually a quote directly from the Bible. I just threw in a Bible verse about like not judging a man by his appearances. The second post on this blog is entitled, I Don't Have Any Friends. This one was actually a really difficult read because I do talk at length about how I don't have any friends, about how lonely I am, and here I sit, the ripe old age of 28 years old, and I still feel a lot of sentiments that are written about in this blog. I still have so much trouble making friends, and I kind of feel this girl right now. I honestly think it's like a really shameful thing to admit on the internet to like other people that you just don't really have any close friends or, you know, friendships in your life. I think it's kind of like embarrassing to say out loud. So I'm really proud for her and proud for this girl that she felt, you know, compelled to speak her truth and talk about it. From where I'm sitting, I feel like this post is fair. Do I think we needed to go to some of these places and reveal them to the entire interweb? No, but I can imagine this was probably incredibly therapeutic to type and upload to the blog at the time. But scrolling through this post, I can also see that I was never able to really place like any blame on myself ever about like friendship breakups or losing friends over time. I think at a certain point you have to like look in the mirror and realize what you're not bringing into the friendships, or what you can change about yourself to be a better friend. I don't think I ever really did any like inner reflection. Maybe it was the fact that I still did not have a prefrontal cortex, my brain wasn't fully developed, I don't know. A big theme in this blog, as you will come to see, is losing friendships and not being able to properly cope with the loss of a friend. And a lot of these posts is like me putting my whole sorusy into placing a positive spin on something really tragic that's going on in my life. And so, of course, in this post, I make a point about how, the friends come and go into your life for certain seasons, for certain reasons. You outgrow friendships, and that's normal, but my lack of coping skills was really showing. Like, I really did not know how to process this. This was a time when I really needed a therapy to teach me the coping skills I would need to move on from some of these friendship breakups. The next post is titled, Advice from a Very Experienced College Student. At this time in my life, I was headed to my 4th university that I was going to go to since starting college at 18. And hello, 4 universities by the time you're a junior? That is a desperate cry for help if I've ever heard one. The longest I had ever stayed at a school so far when this happened was 2 semesters, 2 whole semesters at a university. And at this time I was in the thick of chasing whatever it was that I thought would make me happy at the time. At one point I thought that it would make me happy if I transferred to a school where I could play softball. Then I transferred to the same school as my, at the time, boyfriend. I transferred to a 4-year university where I could like take the classes that I needed to take, but I could still live with my parents because I still wanted to live at home. My brain just tried to cook up, whatever it was that I thought the problem was at each university, and then I would try to fix it. And to fix it, I would have to move to another university, and I was stuck in that loop for a very long time. Admitting this in a blog post was something that at the time felt really shameful. Like, I really felt ashamed that I didn't seem to be able to make it work anywhere that I was going in college. I didn't seem to be able to like make the friends that I needed, find the communities that I needed to like make me want to stay, make me compelled to stay. And don't even get me started about the academic side of college, because who can focus on that when you're transferring 50,000 different times? And no, not every single class is going to count at every single university. Like, you're retaking classes, you're like starting over when you get to a new school. It was so much at the time. I was just so miserable in college. I was so depressed. I just kept thinking that a change of scenery, a change of location would just give me that like inspiration, that little oomph that you need to get through. No, you didn't need to change the scenery. You needed a therapist at the time, not a blog. Okay, so the next post is entitled, The End, I'm Serious This Time. The title of this post seems very cryptic, a little bit of an oversight if you ask me. It really was nothing of that nature. This is basically a blog post that details my experience playing my last season of softball. Something I really needed therapy for desperately as a young person, as a new adult, someone emerging into their 20s, I really needed a therapist to separate my identity as a person from my identity in playing sports. I put a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of my heart and soul into becoming the best pitcher that I could be when I was a teenager. Like, softball meant the world to me. Winning games on my high school team meant the world to me. Being a good pitcher to bring my team to championships and winning games and breaking records, like, that was all so important to me as a developing person, as a teenager. And so when, you get out of that situation, you're not playing high school sports anymore, you're not playing softball at all anymore. I had a really hard time like separating my self-identity from essentially like my contribution to a team as a softball player. I don't really know if I'm explaining that correctly, but I feel like I had put so much of my self-worth into how good of a pitcher I was. Even saying the words, I was a pitcher, like, don't seem like they should be coming out of my mouth. And I won't say that I'm not athletic, because I am athletic, okay? That's like one of the things that I thank my parents for all the time, for giving me those genetics of someone who is an athlete, because I pick up things as an adult really easily. But it just, like, a competitive sport like softball, it just seems worlds away from my personality now. Like, I think there are other universes where I never played a team sport, and that's probably for the best. But having to step away from softball at the time, it felt like the end of the world. It was all I ever really knew. It was my community, it was my friends, it was what I thought my purpose was. My purpose. Which is strange to say now because that could not be further from where I am now, like I said. And I don't even really think about softball at all. I haven't touched a softball probably in like a decade. And I don't know that I ever will again. Other than that like desperate cry for help that you need a therapist to help you separate those identities, this was really just a love letter to the sport and saying goodbye to it as I make my way through my last season. The next post is entitled, Do Mean Girls Ever Go Away? I fully remember what inspired this post. It was my boyfriend at the time's mom who literally called a teenage girl ugly because she broke up with her son. It had me thinking of the violence in the ways that women speak about one another, no matter the age, okay? Because like, why are you a grown adult talking about a teenage girl that way? But it's just women against women, you know? It's really just a women against, it's a war on women, by women. And again, maybe go to therapy and like reassess the people that you surround yourself with instead of like incessantly bitching about it on your blog. I mean, sorry. I had to give myself some tough love there, but like, come on. This whole post has very much pick me vibes, okay? Me explaining run-ins with mean girls, etc. Literally, I need to quote this because I do not know this bitch at all. I was dating someone who had a crazy ex-girlfriend. She was screenshotting my pictures on Instagram and sending them to my boyfriend at the time, calling me fat, calling me ugly. She would always end her messages by saying how much better she was than me. I'm sorry, please do not think less of me. I swear this could not be further from the bitch that I am today. Please believe me, I am not this pick me girl anymore. This actually made me want to vomit when I read it. Because the whole narrative of like, he has a crazy ex in the year of our Lord 2024, if you still believe that about your man, that he had a crazy ex-girlfriend, you're crazy. I actually can't remember how I found out this information. If anything, it was probably my boyfriend at the time telling me this information, and it probably was never true. He was probably cheating on me with her because he was terrible. But instead of going to therapy and addressing my own insecurities, I am here projecting them onto somebody else. And the question of whether mean girls go away, the answer is yes, you dumb bitch. The mean girls will go away if you stop surrounding yourself with mean girls. It's a crazy concept. And then I go on to make a post about my mom for Mother's Day. I talk about how I went 6 weeks without social media. And then we arrive at this post, losing my best friend. And I have to say, this was another one that was really hard to read through. It details the heartbreak of losing someone that you considered for a time your closest and best friend, someone who was like family to you. The breakdown of this relationship affected me so completely. It consumed my whole world at the time. And for this, I really needed help because I would go on to really hold on to this for a really long time. And it affected how I moved through the world. It affected my future relationships and friendship. It affected my self-worth. It affected how close I would allow myself to become to others, how I would, how I would or would not let myself be myself around other people. And honestly, only recently in therapy, like as recent as this year, have I fully like reprocessed the trauma that friendship gave me and that friendship breakup gave me. And I know at the time it probably did feel really therapeutic to like write these things out in a blog post, get my thoughts out. Maybe some part of me did hope that, someone would read through it and they would relate, because at the time this feeling felt really isolating. But again, it's a valid experience, but do I wish that it was on the internet for just anyone and everyone to read? No, not really. The next post is entitled, What to Do When a Role Model Lets You Down. I remember who this was about. It was about someone that was a former coach of mine that I was beginning to kind of assistant coach with. By the way, I just have to say, I make a terrible coach, okay? I let these little middle schoolers bully me because I never wanted to tell them what to do, and I never could, and I never will, and I don't know how people do it. I don't care that they're the most annoying, bratty middle school girls. I cannot tell people what to do. It's not in me, okay? But anyways, I was sharing with him a career move that I wanted to make, and essentially he told me I would be making a mistake. And for no reason, really. And I don't really want to get into the weeds of it all because it just like, he gave me the advice that like, you're making a bad decision, when I knew that wasn't true. And look at where I am today. I literally just said I can't get into the details, but let me just say, I could go back in time and tell him I told you so. Because things did work out the way that I knew they would. Because I'm smart. Differences in opinions with adults happens all the time, but I was genuinely so hurt to not have his support at this juncture in the road where I really was genuinely asking him for advice. And so I was just so hurt that I made this entire post about how to cope with being disappointed in someone that you viewed as a role model. But again, this is another moment where I needed therapy to recognize that I was putting all of these harsh expectations on this person. And he wasn't a role model to me. And I didn't have the ability to even recognize at the time or to cope with what he was saying to me. So that was another one where it's you just needed therapy to talk through your expectations of other people in your life. The next post is entitled "The Inside Jokes Hit Different." Another post about a best friend lost. And are we recognizing a pattern yet? Essentially, this post reflects on the inside jokes that just don't hit anymore because you have no one to share them with. This was just another cry for help, saying, I miss my best friend. I can't move on. I was still at this restaurant for a long time. And this is where I need to get a therapist because I was genuinely having such a hard time coping with the loss of this friendship. I think it was mostly because it ended in such a way that left no closure. It ended with her just essentially ghosting me and never talking to me again. I was always grappling with what I did wrong, what I could have done wrong, how I could change things. I remember in my early 20s, whenever I would get drunk, I wasn't trying to drunk text like an ex. I was literally drunk drafting paragraphs to this ex-best friend. I would get into my notes app and I would just paragraph after paragraph after paragraph after paragraph. It was my fixation whenever I would get drunk. It was you need to express yourself. And then thank God I never hit send. I never sent those messages, but I would type them out every single time. And it was at a certain point, I just had so many of them in my notes which I think I did delete them because I looked for them to see if they still exist. I did delete them at some point. But that was just how I was coping, I was just if I was drinking, I would just go on and on and on and on in these paragraphs about I'm so sorry. I would go through every scenario that could have made them mad. I just had no way to cope with losing this friend. The next post is entitled, You Are Not Your Hair. Having to part ways with my identity of having long hair because I cut it the shortest I've ever cut it, which was up to my shoulders. And I did this simply because I wanted attention from a man that I worked with, someone that I had a crush with. I was so obsessed with him. And if I ever came to work with anything different in my appearance, he would always compliment me or say something about it. So I thought I would really get his attention by chopping my hair off. Stupid. I genuinely chopped my hair to get the attention of this man for 3 seconds. I was struggling at this time with my self-identity again, and so I'm just in hindsight being get a therapist, don't cut your hair, especially not for a man. Last post is entitled Life After. Perhaps the biggest offense on the blog was the final post because it details my experience of getting out of an abusive relationship. And sure, it paints the experience very figuratively. It essentially uses poetry to describe a long relationship that was abusive and life after getting out of it, but the sentiment is still there. It's not written well enough that, anyone who comes across it wouldn't understand the subject matter. Sorry, my camera died, and I actually had to sit there and wait for the battery to charge because my other battery was also dead. So I'm not really ashamed of having been part of a relationship of that nature, but do I think that all of the intimate details of the relationship and the breakup should be out there on the internet for anybody to see? No. And reading through this post on the other side, having gone to therapy and reprocessed a lot of the trauma that this relationship gave me, it just feels icky that other people could read about it. And it was therapeutic to write about this, to write about getting out, but I think this is one that could have just stayed in the drafts. I think at the time it was so new and I was so hurt that I felt like I needed other people to know how I felt, but really no one needed to know that, except maybe a therapist. Do I think that there's a time and a place to discuss these types of relationships? Maybe. Maybe in my memoir someday, or in peer counseling, or in a situation where you can help other people. But do I believe that it should exist in a random place on the internet where just anyone can read it? No. So now that I have unpacked all of this for you, we can say goodbye to justserenaconfessions.com. And just know that if you ever find me writing about my personal life, personal experiences, in a blog in the future, please just call the police. If you're watching at the end of this video, I just want to say Happy New Year because I Unfortunately, I think this is the first video you're gonna see in 2025. I have a lot of really cool content planned for this year. I'm really excited to get back into the swing of things on YouTube. I'm really excited. I want to make 2025 a really thick content year. So I'm really excited. And if you guys are still watching this, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video next week. Bye!